Hello, good morning. Welcome to Gaming Insight Daily for Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. I'm Steve Saylor. This is your daily show of gaming news, accessibility news, or updates about my life. I have coffee in my PlayStation mug today. Nothing feels better than a first sip of coffee for the day, right? Yeah, excited for the day. All right. We're just going to jump right into this news story. I had debated for probably a long time on what I wanted to talk about today. I was going to do a discussion on the $80 price tag for games that seems to be happening and kind of giving context around that. If you actually want me to be able to do that as a topic, please let me know in the comments below. I'll be very curious to hear your thoughts on that. But I didn't want to do that specifically just yet because I feel like I need a little bit extra context, a little bit extra sort of like information about this stuff. So I may postpone that for a little bit, but I want to hear your thoughts about what you think about $80 games. Do you think it's great? Do you think it's not great? Let me know everything in between in the comments below. But today's story kind of deals a little bit with accessibility, and I don't want to make fun of this in a way that seems like I'm laughing at people, trying to laugh with people. Let me explain by jumping into the story. So this is a news story that was posted by Vicky Blake over at IGN. Liza P. DLC Overture director vows to, quote, review various adjustments, including difficulty reduction, end quote. You may be wondering, wait, didn't they already, in the Overture update, if you didn't know, within the new DLC of Liza P, I didn't even mean that to rhyme, the developers basically have added a new difficulty mode to the game, and keeping the intended sort of difficulty as sort of like the normal or even the hardest, because the game didn't have any difficulty modes, which a lot of Souls-like games don't. So by them adding a difficulty mode option, I'm trying to be able to see if I can get a review code of the game, because I really want to be able to jump into that just to try the new difficulty mode. But I'm still trying to be able to find where I can be able to get a code for that. So stay tuned for that. I just find this interesting. Okay, so I was reading a little bit of this, and like I wasn't too sure if I wanted to talk about it, so that's why I read it ahead of time. And then when I got to a certain point, I was like, okay, I gotta talk about it. Okay, so let's read the article. Liza P developer NeoWiz did indeed drop DLC Overture during Summer Game Fest, which they actually shadow dropped during the Summer Game Fest Live, introducing new locations, new enemies and bosses, new characters, weapons, and the very controversial decision to add in 2 easier difficulty options. I didn't realize it was controversial. I just thought that was a cool thing, but okay. And now those options are getting easier again as the team preps for difficulty reduction. As a Souls-like game, Liza P can be punishingly difficult, especially for inexperienced players and perhaps attracted by Liza P's dark story and setting. Director Yuan Choi, I don't know how to pronounce that, I apologize, had previously said that the team didn't think Souls-like games should have difficulty options, and it shipped without any, but has since had a change of heart, saying we wanted to make sure a wider audience of players could play the game. I'll get into that. Well, actually, no, let's get into this now. I've said time and time again, when it comes to difficulty options in Souls-like games, that I feel that adding just difficulty options is kind of like taking a crowbar into the intended Souls-like experience. I have been like, out of all of the talk about difficulty modes and going back to even the original discourse of Sekiro should have an easy mode. I first, when this discourse started, I was on the easy mode should be included in Souls-like games, because if that's the only accessibility that's there, then I'll take the accessibility that's there. I recently kind of changed my stance on that. It's not to say that I don't want an easy mode in like in these kind of games. I want other types of accessibility in there to keep the challenge fun. That's where I've sort of been put at. So if difficulty options help with that, great. But I will want a bunch of other accessibility options to kind of remove some of the barriers that disabilities can prevent players from playing, just so they can be able to still enjoy what is an intended Souls-like experience. All right. Before anybody kind of jumps in the comments and basically is like, it wants to like basically just spew just whatever, because I've had that many times already in my YouTube channel. I don't need to have to go through that again. I want to be very clear. It's not that I want to force every Souls-like game to have difficulty options. That's not what I'm trying to say. I want Souls-like games to have accessibility. There's a difference. Easy mode does not equate to accessibility. Okay? Easy mode can be part of accessibility, but it's not the end-all, be-all solution for accessibility. There are other things that can be added into a game that can be used as options. Options are things you can enable or disable yourself. They're not default. They're not in the design experience. Now, I would love to have a proper discussion on accessible design in a Souls-like game. That I'll be very curious to kind of to talk about at some point. But when it comes to right now, I would say options is probably the preferred way to go, so that a player can decide whether they want to enable or disable an option as they want to make the game more fun. That's the whole point of games, is to make it more fun. And if you find Souls-like games where it's super challenging, where you learn by dying all the time, and you find that fun, I want you to have fun. So that's why I want you to be able to customize your experience how you want it. That was the main kind of like the crux of the discourse, essentially, if you kind of break it down to it, is that it's about enabling ways that players can be able to enjoy. And when you don't have an option there, you're under the assumption that a certain type of player can be able to play a game. By including a difficulty options, which is what NeoWiz is doing with Liza P with this new DLC, they've basically said, and they quote Choi saying here, we wanted to make sure a wider audience of players could play the game. That's all accessibility does. It allows more players to be able to play the game and make it fun. Okay, so don't jump down my throat if you think that I'm basically saying that every Souls-like game should need an easy mode. Okay, let's continue on with the article. For those attempting the Overture DLC on the intended quote-unquote difficulty, Legendary Stalker, however, things seem tougher than ever. There have been so many comments, both for and against the DLC's difficulty spike, that the Liza P subreddit has had to merge them all into a mega thread to stop the community from being overwhelmed by complaints. Some comments and reviews on Steam echo this, with one writing, I'm at level 300 and should not be getting two-shot from basic enemies. It doesn't help that the enemy grouping is designed for you to have to deal with multiple at once. This wouldn't be a problem if even one of those enemies doesn't take out half your health with one hit. Oh! You maybe want to be able to have it so you like maybe have adjust maybe the difficulty. Would you like maybe a customized difficulty, so you can be able to adjust the enemy's hit points or the enemy's attack damage? Sounds like that's kind of what you want, right? And again, this is kind of where I'm having fun with this a little bit, because I'm trying so hard not to just laugh out loud in trolls' faces. I think I might at some point. We'll see. Now, courtesy of new Liza P. director's letter, it seems the difficulty will be tweaked once again. Quote, we're reviewing all of the player feedback carefully and are already looking into when to implement some of your suggestions, Choi said, as spotted by Eurogamer. Among all the feedback, we are paying the closest attention to the combat experience. We identified areas that do not turn out quite as well as we intended. Therefore, we are reviewing various adjustments, including difficulty reduction. However, combat is one of the most fundamental experiences in Liza P, so any modifications or changes require meticulous work and thorough testing. It's perhaps because of the fundamental issue that end quote. It's perhaps because of that quote-unquote fundamental issue that NeoWiz is not given any indication of when the game will be patched. It's perhaps because of that the fundamental issue that NeoWiz has not given an indication of when the game will be patched. Okay, so that was a proper way to read that sentence. We had a good time with Liza P and awarding it 8 out of 10, and Overture itself also secured an 8 out of 10. Even if it's clearly dancing on the same old strings, Liza P Overture is an excellent expansion that adds a whole lot more to a game that was already great, we wrote. I am trying really hard not to laugh. Because people are complaining about the game being too difficult. Sorry, it's just so stupid. For years, literal years, accessibility advocates have been thrown under the bus, have been ridiculed, including myself, harassed for God knows how long. Literally, I was harassed by 4chan for 2.5 months because of my thoughts on accessibility in a Souls-like game. And one game that basically was kind of heralded as a good Souls-like game, probably one of the best Souls-like game. Because the developer wanted to have more players to play, they were like, well, let's add difficulty modes. And so what they do, they decide to make the regular mode, like the regular sort of intended difficulty, a little bit harder. And people complain that it's hard. It's too hard. I should not be able to be two-shotted when I'm at level 300. It's almost as if human variance is the crux of this whole thing, right? Human skill level is different from one person to another. Well, one person finds easy, the other person will find hard, and vice versa. Almost as if, and this is not necessarily a quote for me, this is actually a quote from my friend Ian Hamilton, who said this. It's almost as if difficulty doesn't exist. Our normal thoughts of easy, medium, and hard, or easy, normal, and hard, is kind of non-existent. Because again, one may find a game difficult, one may find it easy. One may, the other same person may find a game difficult, the other one may be easy. It's all human variance. That's the difficulty is just an arbitrary limit that the developers decided to add in to try to be able to make sure that whoever wants to jump into their game, if they find the game a little too difficult, they can turn it down to easy so that it's a little bit more fun. That's the key word there, fun for them. And if they want it more difficult, that's why they can increase the difficulty to make it more fun for them. So one of the reasons why I love Doom the Dark Ages so much was because they decided to add in accessibility options to the difficulties of the game so you can make it harder or less challenging. Because human variance is we've always said that disability is a spectrum, right? It's not, disability is not an on-off switch, just like human variance. Human variance is literally, it's a spectrum. It's a spectrum of skill. If you just want to put it down, it's a spectrum of skill level. Some players have a great amount of skill level. That's where you kind of put in the pros, the esports athletes, that kind of thing. You put them into there. And then you have the ones that are just like, they just want to play a game for a good, fun time, and they only play games on their phone. Like, that's all human variance of skill level. And it's not, and by you saying, well, maybe this game is not for you, but what if it is? What if I want to enjoy this kind of experience, but can't because of a lack of accessibility, a lack of ways to just remove? All we're asking is just remove some of the barriers that we have when our day-to-day lives, just so that we can be able to play. We're trying to find, where are the curb cuts? If you don't know what a curb cut is, like those are the basically that kind of dip into a sidewalk so that so strollers and wheelchairs can be able to go up and go up and off of a sidewalk. Those were invented because of accessibility, and curb cuts kind of became a normal part of everyday life. We're trying to find those curb cuts in a video game. It's, again, not to make it easier, it's just to remove the barrier of having to be able to go down from a sidewalk to a street level. It's just adding that little tiny ramp. That's all it is. It's just, I just find it funny being like, oh, game too hard now. Fix it. Add difficulty mode. We need easy mode. Make it easier. Sorry, I'm not doing this to try to jump into any other discourse now. It's just, I saw this story and I just, again, kind of going back to that emotional rant I did a couple of days ago about sort of people who were upset that there was no Nintendo Switch 2 reviews and there's no information about the Switch 2 before launch. And I was saying, like, yeah, now welcome to our world where this for disabled players, just trying to find disability or accessibility information for games is the same thing. We don't know what's going to be in the game until launch, if that. And this is the same. I feel like I'm getting to do another version of that, being like, yeah, you thought it was difficult? Yeah, welcome to our world, right? Welcome to our world. I just find it's just so damn funny. I know, and I like here's because again, here's the thing. All we want to do is just make the game more fun for us, and we want the same challenge. Like, I want to jump into Lies of P, knowing that it's going to be difficult, even at the easier difficulty setting. I want a fun, like, combat challenge, because I understand what, like, the genius level of Souls-like games or Souls games themselves. I understand the genius level of you learn by dying. You learn how not to do, like, it's all trial and error. That's all like a lot of Souls-like games is trial and error. You try something and the enemy is able to attack that, like you try a different thing against an enemy, the enemy was able to block it or to be able to defend against it, or does something different that you didn't see before. So like when you die, you get to come back to it again and be like, okay, I now know that this enemy is going to do this if I do this, so I'm going to try something else. It's literally trial and error. And I've heard it said before, it's you learn by dying. People want that. People want that as a challenge. Even disabled players. I have so many disabled friends who actually enjoy games like Elden Ring because of the being able to remap controls on a PC level for them to be able to play. They love that. They want that same challenge because to them, it's fun. They want the same fun. We all want the same kind of fun. It's just that our disability gets in the way, and there are barriers that need to be addressed. So having stuff like remapping, having stuff like maybe a high contrast mode, because high contrast, here's the thing. I'll just say this. For my personal experience, high contrast mode would help me see the animations of an enemy better, so that I could learn how to properly know when to dodge or parry an enemy attack. Some people may think that that's just going to make the game easier because you can see enemies at a distance, blah, 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 and people will complain about it because they think it's cheating. But to me, it brings me to the same level that everyone else has, because everyone else can read the animation, can be able to see the animation of that boss pretty well, but I can't. So if either was a high contrast mode, I could be able to see that animation a little bit better because I can't see it personally. Now, I know that basically there's a whole thing about there's a lot more accessibility that could be there for blind players, and I'm not saying that high contrast mode is the only accessibility option that should be in these games. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not even saying that a blind experience is different than any other blind experience, or that like I could see better than other people. I'm not even going into any of that stuff. I'm literally just giving the high contrast mode as an example that would help me, along with every other accessibility that could be added in for blind players. It's not making the game easier for us, it's making the game playable. That's the real, like, I know I keep saying the real crux of this, but that is like, that goes without saying, just with a lot of games. It's not that we want the game easier, we want the game to be playable for us. So, anyway, I thought this story was fun. I thought the story was interesting. And I just, again, I'm not laughing at them. I'm laughing with them. Okay. All right. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. If you find that your comments are kind of potentially like maybe blocked, there have been some settings that from previous videos that I got harassed by, so I may sort of turn off some of those filters. But there was some that were kind of preventing comments from being posted. So I apologize if you see one that's not being posted or it's under review. Don't worry, that's not you. It's just because of the filter settings within YouTube. So, but I would love to be able to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below. Take care. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye-bye.